Imagine a battlefield where time itself bends, where the world's most powerful leaders, conquerors, and dictators are summoned into one ultimate arena, from Elon Musk's futuristic armies of AI-driven machines to Alexander the Great charging forward with his unstoppable cavalry. What if history's titans collided in a clash beyond imagination? Think of Stalin's iron grip meeting Churchill's fiery speeches that rallied nations, or Hitler's ruthless war machine squaring off against the sheer brutality of Genghis Khan's horsemen. Even modern giants like Trump, Xi Jinping, and Putin wouldn't walk in with speeches or diplomacy. They'd bring entire nations' power, weapons, and influence as their arsenal. So here's the burning question. If these men of unimaginable influence could command not just their armies, their very peak of their power, who would dominate the world? Buckle up, because this isn't just history. It's the ultimate what-if showdown of power. If Elon Musk were dropped into this ultimate arena of power, he wouldn't ride in on horseback or march behind infantry lines. No, his army would descend from the skies, fleets of AI-powered drones swarming like mechanical locusts, armed with precision weapons and coordinated by neural networks faster than any human general could ever think. Imagine a battlefield where his soldiers aren't men but machines, humanoid robots from Tesla factories armored with Starship-grade alloys, programmed to fight with flawless efficiency. And Musk's empire? Forget castles or tanks. He would wage war from space. Starlink satellites form his unbreakable communication web, guiding hypersonic strikes, disabling enemy grids, and turning the battlefield into a chessboard where every move is calculated. His SpaceX rockets, repurposed as weapons of mass intimidation, capable of launching payloads that could cripple entire cities. Picture Neuralink-controlled warriors, human soldiers upgraded with chips, reacting with machine-like speed, merging biology and AI into something terrifyingly unstoppable. In terms of influence, Musk already bends markets with a single tweet, so imagine that power amplified in warfare. Economies collapse at his command. Crypto-fueled war chests bankroll endless innovation, and armies of fans across the globe volunteer, loyal not by fear, but by obsession with his vision. If history's conquerors fought with brute force, Musk fights with intelligence, speed, and technology. Could Alexander the Great's cavalry ever outrun reusable rockets? Could Genghis Khan's horse archers pierce drone swarms? Unlikely. In this ultimate clash, Elon Musk doesn't just fight battles, he rewrites the rules himself. Second, Donald Trump, the populist commander. If Donald Trump entered this arena of ultimate power, he wouldn't march in quietly. He'd arrive like a showman general, flags waving, crowds roaring, and armies fueled by sheer loyalty. His strength has never been tanks or missiles alone. It's influence. Trump commands with charisma that electrifies millions, a force as dangerous as any weapon. Imagine a battlefield where his soldiers aren't just military troops, but legions of passionate followers, chanting his name, believing every word of his battle cry. Militarily, Trump's arsenal would be America's might: stealth bombers, nuclear submarines, carrier fleets cutting across oceans. But more than weapons, his power is persuasion. He wields media like a sword, firing off words that can destabilize markets, divide nations, or ignite movements overnight. On this battlefield, misinformation is artillery, propaganda is armor, and rallies are recruitment centers swelling his ranks. Trump thrives on unpredictability. Imagine him deploying shockwave policies mid-battle, leaving enemies scrambling while his forces surge forward. Allies and rivals alike would be locked in a storm of confusion, unsure if they're dealing with bluster or a calculated strike. And in the chaos, Trump does what he does best: command attention, dominate headlines, and bend the narrative until it favors him. Would armies stand forever? Maybe not. But in the short term, Trump's combination of raw national power, media dominance, and an army of loyal believers could tilt the scales in shocking ways. In the ultimate war for global domination, Trump isn't just a commander. He's a showman general whose battlefield is as much about perception as destruction. Third, Xi Jinping, the silent dragon of... When Xi Jinping steps into this arena of history's greatest titans, he does not arrive with noise or chaos. He arrives with quiet, calculated precision. His power is not in speeches alone, but in discipline, patience, and the weight of 1.4 billion people standing behind him. Imagine a battlefield commanded by the silent dragon, where sheer numbers become an unstoppable tide. His army, the People's Liberation Army, the largest standing force in the world, marching in disciplined formation, backed by cutting-edge stealth jets, hypersonic missiles, and naval fleets stretching across oceans. But Xi's greatest weapon isn't just steel or firepower, it's control. He commands information like emperors once commanded land. Cyber armies under his rule could dismantle enemy grids, shut down economies, and blind opponents before a single shot is is fired. Picture drones darkening the sky like a mechanical storm, satellite-guided weapons striking with machine precision, and legions of disciplined soldiers advancing with unbreakable unity. Unlike Trump's chaos or Musk's futurism, she fights with patience, wearing enemies down, playing the long game until victory is inevitable. And then there's influence. With economic ties spread across Africa, Asia, and beyond, Xi's empire is not just military, it's financial. Entire nations bend to China's trade networks, its loans, its technology. On this battlefield, his power stretches beyond guns. It stretches into wallets, ports, and supply chains. If others seek quick glory, Xi seeks enduring control. Like an emperor of old, he doesn't need to win every battle. He just needs to outlast his enemies. And when the dust settles, the dragon still stands. Fourth, Vladimir Putin, the Iron Tsar of the modern age. When Vladimir Putin enters this clash of history's titans, he carries the aura of an unshakable strongman, the modern-day czar who thrives in shadows and strikes with precision. His battlefield is one of icy patience, deception, and sudden brutality. Imagine a leader who commands not just soldiers, but spies, hackers, and mercenaries who move like ghosts across the globe. Putin's army, a blend of Soviet legacy and modern steel. Nuclear warheads, the largest stockpile in the world, linger like a dark cloud over every opponent. Tanks rumble across frozen landscapes, fighter jets scream through the skies, and cyber divisions infiltrate enemy networks, paralyzing defenses before the first missile ever launches. Add to this his infamous Wagner-style mercenaries, silent killers operating in chaos zones, and you have an army built on both brute force and shadow warfare. But Putin's true weapon is unpredictability. He thrives on pushing opponents to the edge, daring them to make the first mistake. One day, it's diplomacy with a smile. The next, it's armored columns rolling across borders. His command style echoes the cold ruthlessness of past czars, never revealing weakness, never backing down. And beyond the battlefield, his influence spreads through fear and manipulation. Energy pipelines become weapons, turning heat and light into bargaining chips for entire nations. Propaganda saturates the airwaves, painting him as untouchable. In this arena of giants, Putin doesn't aim to or inspire. He aims to dominate by sheer intimidation. He is the Iron Tsar, a master of psychological warfare, whose enemies never know if they're staring at strategy or the opening move of destruction. Fifth, Franklin D. Roosevelt, the commander of democracy's arsenal. Franklin D. Roosevelt enters this ultimate battlefield not with swords or spears, but with the full industrial might of America roaring at his back. His weapon is not only the military, it's the ability to transform a nation into a war machine overnight. Imagine the skies filled with swarms of bombers rolling off assembly lines, tanks and warships produced faster than any enemy could destroy them. This was FDR's true power, turning factories into fortresses and workers into soldiers of production. On the battlefield, his armies would arrive like an avalanche. Millions of men under the stars and stripes, armed with the most advanced weapons of the 1940s. Sherman tanks rumbling forward, aircraft carriers projecting power across oceans, and fleets of destroyers hunting silently beneath the waves.
Citizens,
Roosevelt's war machine was not just about fighting, it was about sustaining endless war until his enemies broke. And his greatest weapon, words. His fiery chats rallied a divided nation, transforming fear into resolve. In this imagined arena, his speeches are thunder, fueling his armies with unshakable belief that victory is destiny. While dictators rule by fear, FDR ruled by hope, a force as powerful as any bomb. Globally, Roosevelt was the architect of alliances. Picture Churchill at his side, Stalin at his table, and nations uniting under his vision. He didn't just wield America's armies, he commanded the free world. In this clash of power, Roosevelt is the general of democracy, the man who proved that factories, faith, and unity could defeat tyranny. On this battlefield of titans, he wouldn't just fight, he would mobilize the world itself. Sixth, Winston Churchill, the Lion of Britons. When Winston Churchill strides onto this battlefield of history's giants, he comes not with overwhelming numbers or vast empires, but with something far more dangerous, unbreakable resolve and the ability to turn words into weapons. Picture him standing amid the smoke of war, cigar in hand, voice booming like artillery. We shall never surrender. His speeches are not mere lines. They are battle cries that transform ordinary men into lions. His army, the battle-hardened British forces of World War II, masters of resilience. Spitfire and Hurricane fighters soar through the skies, their engines screaming defiance as they take on overwhelming odds. Royal Navy, ruling the seas for centuries, becomes his sword, cutting across oceans to strike at enemies far from Britain's shores. Behind him stands a people who endured the Blitz, cities reduced to rubble, unbroken, a nation forged in fire. But Churchill's true weapon is strategy. He was a gambler, willing to take risks others feared. Commandos slipping into enemy territory, daring raids that struck like lightning. Alliances forged in smoke-filled war rooms. In this arena, he wouldn't stand alone. He'd rally allies to his side, turning lone battles into united wars. Even when outnumbered, Churchill thrives on turning desperation into defiance. Enemies might overpower his forces, but never his spirit. In this clash of titans, he is not the largest nor the richest, but he is the voice that turns defeat into victory, despair into determination. On this battlefield, Churchill is the roaring lion of Britain, unyielding, unafraid, and unforgettable. 7th, Joseph Stalin, the iron fist of the Soviet Empire. When Joseph Stalin enters this battlefield of power, he doesn't come with speeches or theatrics. He comes with an avalanche of steel and men. Stalin is not the general who inspires with hope. He is the dictator who rules by fear. His soldiers fight not because they choose to, but because disobedience means death. And under that iron grip, the Red Army becomes a relentless storm. Imagine wave after wave of infantry, millions strong, advancing through mud and snow with brutal determination. Behind them roll Soviet T-34 tanks, rugged, unstoppable machines that overwhelmed by sheer numbers. The skies roar with squadrons of yak fighters, while artillery shells rain down like thunder, grinding enemies into dust. Stalin's weapon is not precision, it is mass. He drowns his foes in manpower, industry, and sacrifice. But Stalin's battlefield is more than guns. It's intelligence, paranoia, and control. Secret police eliminate dissent, while spies infiltrate enemy ranks, spreading fear and confusion. His factories churn out weapons day and night, transforming the Soviet Union into a war machine that simply refuses to stop. And in the realm of psychological warfare, Stalin is unmatched. His enemies know retreat means pursuit, surrender means execution, and even victory often comes with terror. He rules through dread, and that dread fuels his empire. In this ultimate clash, Stalin doesn't fight with finesse. He fights with crushing inevitability. Others may strike with brilliance or charisma, but Stalin suffocates his enemies under a tidal wave of steel and silence. He is the Iron Fist, merciless, immovable, and willing to sacrifice millions to ensure his shadow never leaves the battlefield. 8th, Adolf Hitler, the dark architect of destruction. When Adolf Hitler storms into this arena of power, he brings with him not just an army, but an ideology sharpened into a weapon. His battlefield is fueled by fanatic loyalty, where millions march under the swastika, driven by fear, propaganda, and blind devotion. Unlike others who command by strategy or innovation, Hitler commands with obsession, turning belief itself into a form of warfare. His armies, the Wehrmacht, fast, disciplined, and engineered for blitzkrieg. Picture columns of panzer tanks cutting through defenses with lightning speed, while Stuka dive bombers scream from the skies, sowing terror before the ground assault even arrives. In Hitler's hands, war is not slow and grinding. It is sudden, overwhelming, and ruthless. But his power wasn't just military, it was psychological. Through fiery speeches, he hypnotized crowds, bending entire nations to his will. His propaganda machine painted enemies as monsters and himself as destiny. On this battlefield, that charisma becomes a weapon more dangerous than bullets, pulling masses into his orbit. Yet Hitler's strength is also his downfall. His obsession blinds him, driving reckless invasions, stretching armies beyond survival. His world domination dream burns bright, but burns out fast, like fire consuming everything, including itself. If Musk fights with innovation, Stalin with iron discipline, and Churchill with resilience, Hitler fights with fanaticism, terrifying, explosive, but unsustainable. He can carve destruction across continents, but his empire is built on hate, and hate always collapses under its own weight. In this clash of titans, Hitler is the dark flame, one that scorches everything in its path, until nothing remains. 9th, Genghis Khan, the storm from the steppes. When Genghis Khan rides into this arena, the earth itself seems to tremble beneath the thunder of hooves. He does not bring tanks, planes, or satellites. He brings the raw fury of nature harnessed into human form. His army is the Mongol horde, fast, ruthless, and unstoppable, sweeping across continents like a storm that never ends. Imagine waves of horse archers, each warrior able to fire arrows with deadly accuracy while galloping at full speed. No fortress is safe, no city beyond reach. Siege engineers under Genghis build weapons of terror, flaming projectiles, catapults hurling disease-ridden corpses, psychological warfare that breaks enemies before a single clash. His empire expands not with slow sieges, but with lightning raids that devastate armies 3 times his size. But his true genius lies in strategy. Genghis turns mobility into dominance, using deception, feigned retreats, and speed to crush those who underestimate him. on this battlefield. While modern leaders command steel and machines, Genghis commands chaos itself, striking where no one expects, never staying long enough to be cornered. And his influence? Fear. Entire kingdoms surrendered without a fight at the whisper of his name. He ruled not just through force, but through reputation, making terror itself his greatest ally. In this clash of titans, Genghis Khan is the living embodiment of destruction. He doesn't need technology or propaganda. His army is a force of nature, swift and merciless, leaving smoking ruins across the horizon. On this battlefield of giants, he is the storm, and storms cannot be stopped. The ultimate victor, who rules them all? 10 giants entered this battlefield of history, each wielding armies, weapons, and influence that shaped the world in their time. But the question remains, who stands as the single most powerful? Yet here's the twist. Power isn't only about war. Each of these figures shaped history in their own way, and their legacies still echo today. But if this ultimate clash came down to survival and domination, the storm of Genghis Khan still thunders the loudest. And now it's your turn. Who do you think is the true ruler among history's titans? Drop your pick in the comments, because this battle doesn't end here. If you love exploring what-if wars of history's greatest powers, smash that subscribe button, because even bigger battles are coming.